Good evening, fellow LBJers, friends, alumni, students, faculty, staff, and Dean Evans. Thank you all for joining us on this great night from wherever you are on the planet to participate in the 2020 presentation of the Distinguished Alumnus Award and the Rising Leader Award to this year's recipients. I'm Steve Niemeyer, class of 92, and I chair the Alumni Awards Committee of the LBJ School Alumni Association. My job tonight is to introduce Angela Evans, Dean of the LBJ School. I don't know what to say about Dean Evans. I'm going to get emotional here, except that she's brilliant, a terrific dean who has raised the stature of the LBJ School and is loved by everyone I know. I will tell you just two things about Dean Evans, and I hope that's all you need to know. The first is that before she became dean, she was selected in 2012 by the Texas Exes as one of the best professors at the University of Texas. Barbara Jordan always thought being a teacher was how she wanted to be remembered. Second, one of my interns, Desiree Leday, had Dean Evans for a professor. While then Professor Evans was tough, Desiree loved her and learned so much from her. I've known Dean Evans for a long time, and she has always been friendly, forthright, and really cares about the school. And I've always been wowed by her personal touch. Just to give you an example, she wrote me a handwritten note when I changed careers and moved to Alabama. I will miss her immensely after she leaves at the end of the semester. Please give a warm welcome from wherever you are and join me as I clap like crazy for Dean Evans.
Steve, thank you so much. This is such a bittersweet moment for me in so many ways. I'm looking at everybody on the screen, and I would never have met you had I not come to the LBJ school. So this celebration is really not about me. It's about two of our extraordinary alum and who represent the extraordinary alum that the LBJ school is so fortunate to have. And the dedication of the alumni board has been outstanding. I can't speak more highly of everyone and how helpful they have been to me and how much they mean to the school. You know, it's been an honor to serve as the dean of this great school. And I always think about, you know, President Johnson. I pass those big glass screens and I see his face and I think about, you know, the power he saw in dialogue and how important he thought it was to work together, and how much he wanted an engaged citizenry to carry on the legacy of public policy. And he has that at the LBJ school. All of you, our other alum and our students are really representative of President Johnson in a way that really reflects his hopes for the future of public service. And boy, you know, our 50th anniversary really brought to fore some of the incredible DNA, the muscle, and the legacy of the school. And it was a privilege to be dean during that big celebration. But tonight is about two outstanding alumni who are in the arena. And the arena was the theme that we used for our 50th anniversary because we thought it was so important, because Teddy Roosevelt wrote it, and I don't think he really realized how important and how meaningful that would be for generations. You step in, and no matter what happens, you keep going, and you get up and you dust yourself off and you wipe off all the blood, you get your scars, and you keep going again. And these two women have done just that. One's rising and one has been around for a little while, not that long. She still has a way to go. So our first honor this evening will go to the recipient of the Rising Leader Award. But before we go into that and we have people, you know, introduce proper introductions, I just want to say this day is also very meaningful in a couple ways for the country. First, our first COVID vaccine was, you know, provided, as well as the Electoral College voted for Joe Biden to be president. So, you know, we start thinking about how we always have to think positively and think about the actual stamina and the wherewithal of the American public. And today is a good day for so many reasons. So let's just get started. Our first honor this evening goes to the recipient of the Rising Leader Award. And this award recognizes the efforts of a recent alumnus who improves the quality of public service. I'm so pleased to recognize this year's recipient, Lauren Rose. So Lauren's a 2010 public affairs graduate and she's now the Public Policy Director at the Texas Network of Youth Services. And Lauren has demonstrated relentless passion and dedication to advancing the public good, especially for our youth who are, fragile and who need us. So let's all give Lauren a big hand. Good for you, Lauren. Award is going to be the Distinguished Public Service Award, which is the school's highest alumni honor. And this honors an alumnus whose career and public service record best represents the values on which the school was founded. And that's action-oriented leadership, dedication to public service, courage, fortitude. And I'm honored to recognize this year's recipient of the Public Service Award, Alejandra Castillo, a 1998 public affairs graduate and president and CEO of the YWCA. This is remarkable achievement and a lot of responsibility. And in her hands, because of her dedication and courage, she's working on behalf of our nation's most vulnerable. And we've seen that especially through the COVID, how the vulnerable populations and the fragile populations have been affected. I do really wish we were in person to recognize these outstanding alum. And as I think about my time at the dean of this incredible institution, I think about all of you, all of the alum who've taken time tonight to join us. You've inspired me to continue to nurture and produce the next generation of what we call thinkers and doers so that they can join you in the alumni pool. I thank you all for your support, all of your innovative ideas and your kindness in these last 5 years. I know we will stay in touch. I will be forever grateful for the opportunities you've afforded me as dean, especially for the many wonderful people I've met and with whom I've worked. I thank you so much. This is such a meaningful time in my life. And with that, I would like to pass the program to Christine Gedrin, LBJ School alumni member who nominated our Rising Leader Award winner, Lauren Rose, for her brief remarks. Take it away, Christine.
Thank you, Dean Evans. I'm delighted to introduce our winner for this year's Rising Leader Award, Lauren Rose. I was not the only person to nominate Lauren for this award. She was nominated by 10 different people. We don't all even know each other, but when word got out that Lauren would be nominated, people kept reaching out, wanting to sign on. Since graduating from the LBJ Empath program in 2010, Lauren has demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to public service, specializing in policy development and advocacy in the fields of juvenile justice, child welfare, youth homelessness, and mental health. Lauren is currently the Public Policy Director for Texas Network of Youth Services, a statewide membership organization focused on strengthening services for Texas's most vulnerable but resilient young people and families. Through this role during the recent Texas legislative session, or the last Texas legislative session, it wasn't that recent, Lauren led advocacy efforts to secure the state's first official appropriation to support services for youth and young adults experiencing homelessness. This means that right now, in the 10 largest cities across Texas, there are young people who are homeless and on their own, who are receiving services such as emergency shelter, transitional living, drop-in services, and case management, thanks to funding that Lauren secured. But that accomplishment is just one of many achievements that Lauren has attained over the course of her career. And her colleagues and I think of her as a rising leader because we know that she'll accomplish so much more. Lauren has secured passage of numerous pieces of legislation to support youth and families over the years. She's found creative workarounds when needed to move the needle forward despite political opposition. For example, as chronicled by the Texas Tribune, Lauren led efforts to push state lawmakers to raise the age of criminal court jurisdiction from 17 to 18 so that 17-year-old children would be considered juveniles and not adults. Although this effort was not successful due to political factors, Lauren was able to pivot and instead lead advocates in raising the lower age of juvenile court jurisdiction for minor offenses so that fewer children between the ages of 10 and 12 are involved in the justice system. Her statewide work in this area has grown into a movement nationally, making Lauren's efforts a catalyst to establish and create meaningful change for vulnerable Texas children and for children across the country. Lauren is a champion for identifying and addressing disproportionality to advance equity for youth and families of color. She is responsible for conducting original data analysis that identified the over-policing and over-criminalization of Black and Brown youth in the Texas public education system, particularly in regard to school policing and referral to juvenile probation departments. Lauren has consistently gained the respect and collaboration of key stakeholders across the state, including legislators, advocates, nonprofit leaders, juvenile probation chiefs, and more. She is disarming, and she has an ability to connect with many different types of people. She is funny, and she can make jokes and have fun while still maintaining professionalism and making sure the work gets done. Lauren has strong convictions, and when things get tough, she's not inclined to back down. But she's also open and humble, and she has an intellectual curiosity that means she wants to explore issues, hear opposing viewpoints, and get to the truth of the matter. Lauren especially respects the viewpoints of those who have lived experience within the systems that her work addresses, and she has spent substantial time and energy mentoring and supporting a young adult she supervises who has lived experience with foster care, homelessness, and justice system involvement. She is active in the community, including as a mentor for a community organization through which she mentored the same youth for 6 years. She also provides formal and informal mentoring for other public policy professionals who are younger in their careers. This is especially noteworthy because Texas needs more advocates like Lauren. So now I'll pass the mic off to Lauren so that you can hear from her directly.
Thank you, Christine, for the kind words. And I want to say thank you to Lauren Dooley and the other, 10 people who signed on to the letter. I'm truly honored that you would both nominate me and that the Alumni Association would have selected me for this award. And I'm honored to be here with you today, Alejandra. To the LBJ Alumni Association and the LBJ School, thank you for this honor and for hosting tonight's ceremony. To all of you, family, friends, fellow classmates, and alumni, thank you for being here. I know most of us have spent way too much time on Zoom calls over the last 9 months, and your voluntary participation truly means a lot to me. But y'all, I will tell you, there is one person that was actually really excited to be on a Zoom call tonight, and that was my mom. But in all seriousness, I do want to say thank you to my mom for always believing me and instilling into me the value of always looking to make the world a better place. At LBJ, I made a number of lifelong friends, and the friendships that I will treasure forever. The 2 years at this school was a great time in my life, but I also learned a few things along the way. You know, I didn't believe that Dr. Matt at the time, but understanding regression analysis would turn out to be important in my work. A student's race, not their behavior, not their socioeconomic status, drives whether or not a student will be suspended or expelled from school. It seemed really hard to believe for some legislators, but when I explained to them what a regression analysis is, they understood and were willing to listen. I also learned about the school to prison pipeline while at LBJ. It was in Michelle Deitch's Texas Criminal Justice Reform class. The class focused on criminal justice, but we did spend a couple of weeks on juvenile justice and school discipline, leading me to want to learn more, and I did, starting a job directly after LBJ, focusing on juvenile justice reform. However, my biggest takeaway from that class was the humanization of people behind bars. It was the tour of the prisons, talking to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people, learning about their experiences, learning about their children. I wasn't naive to the disparities that existed in our justice system, but I learned how unjust our justice policies are and how biased the system truly is. I had never known an incarcerated person. I'm not sure that I knew a juvenile justice system existed when I was the age that I could be arrested and put in detention. I've never experienced foster care, never experienced homelessness or the school to prison pipeline. I've never been at risk for any of this. And if you haven't noticed, I look nothing like the people who are disproportionately represented in these experiences. And yet I have the honor to have a seat at the table in reforming these systems. So let's talk about systemic racism and oppression. Youth experiencing homelessness, youth in foster care, youth in the juvenile justice system are disproportionately Black because of centuries of systemic racism and oppression, because of policies put in place to oppress Black people, policies that can continue to be codified and implemented today disproportionately negatively impact Black and Latino youth. Maybe some aren't intentional, you'll say, but may I provide a personal experience. I worked for years with a number of policy advocacy partners on legislation that would require training of school-based police officers. To finally get the bills passed after numerous tries, the bill author had to accept an amendment that removed the requirement that the training include cultural competency. That sounds pretty intentional to me. So most of the people on the call tonight work in policy in some capacity. Policy development or policy implementation in the public sector, or maybe in corporate America. Maybe you work in environmental or education policy. Maybe you write your organization's HR policies. Maybe you teach the next generation of great policy minds at the LBJ school. I have a call to action for each of you. Be intentional. Be intentional about having the tough conversations about race. Be intentional about promoting change that undoes and addresses systemic racism and biases. Be intentional about developing and implementing policies that will address the racial disproportionalities and disparities that run rampant through our society and in our workplaces. Be intentional about making sure that people of color and the people that your policy will impact have a seat at the decision-making table. Be intentional about calling it out when people of color and the people impacted are not at the table. Be intentional about making sure when they're at the table, they are heard and they are listened to. Be intentional about making sure that they are at the head of the table. Data and research are fantastic tools, but no one is more of an expert on oppression and racism than those who have experienced racism and oppression. Listen to them. And may we all continue to strive to change a little part of our world for the better. Thank you again. And I think I'm passing to Victoria.
Thank you, Lauren, and a big congratulations to you, Lauren. And before I get started on my introduction to Alejandra, I wanted to echo Stephen's remarks about Dean Angela Evans. This is indeed a bittersweet evening. You have been a tremendous support, mentor, friend, colleague, Dean Evans, and please know how much I will miss you and how honored and privileged I was to serve with you at the LBJ school. In nominating Alejandra, I want to recognize two individuals who wrote the letter with me, who were an integral part of this effort, and that is Esteban Delgado, empath class of 2018, and Juani Torres, a current student, but soon to be graduate, class of 2021. So thank you both to Juani and to Esteban. And in putting together this nomination, I was immersed in the reflection of the 50th anniversary of the LBJ school, right? So 50 years ago, President LBJ came and broke ground. He inaugurated the school. And in celebrating the 50th anniversary, it was about, as Dean Evans said, being in the arena, seeing the public servants that are in there, they roll up their sleeves, they get bloody, but they are in it for the public service. And in thinking about who personifies this, there was one person that I couldn't get out of my head, and that was Alejandra Castillo. Alejandra Castillo is someone who, before meeting her in person, I had known of her work. You know, I'd known her from afar. I hadn't met her, and even before then, I was supremely impressed. She is the first in many, right? She's an LBJ alum, but she's been in the public service arena for close to 3 decades. She also is a lawyer. She has served in many different capacities. When I wrote this letter, I remember writing it earlier this year, in January, before the world changed. And when I was writing this letter, I was thinking about President Johnson's call during the inauguration of the school for those students who would go through the LBJ school to do one thing, to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. And that is what Alejandra does. That is what Alejandra has always done. You know, in her current role, where Alejandra is the president and CEO of the YWCA, she oversees an organization that provides services to over 2 million women. And that's not counting all of the families that are also accessing those services of the YWCA. Alejandra, prior to coming to the YWCA, served in the Obama administration as the director of Minority Business Development Agency, where she was securing billions of dollars for small minority businesses, ensuring that these businesses could not just survive, but also thrive. So we see a consistent pattern in what Alejandra has done throughout her roles, throughout her time at LBJ, and it was to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. That was before the world changed. After the world changed, we saw that what Alejandra does, her commitment to social and racial justice, her commitment to seeing that those that are the most vulnerable, women, especially women of color, have access to the resources that they need, again, to not just survive, but thrive. And I have had the pleasure of working with Alejandra in the last couple of months in seeing how to best advocate and give voice to those hardest hit from the pandemic, which are women, women of color, and minority communities. And so once again, I'm reminded of that amplification of what Alejandra Castillo does, because she is serving millions upon millions of folks through the work she does at the YWCA, but also in her voice, in providing voice in the halls of Congress, in our state legislators, in our city councils with key stakeholders, where she has access to give voice to those that do not have a voice. And on a personal note, I also wanted to speak to Alejandra's mentorship. Alejandra is not just a friend, but she's a friend that you can call at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. on a Thursday night when you have questions, when you need guidance. I call her on a Sunday morning. I text her, I bug her. I know I bug you, Alejandra, but you put yourself out there to do that. For example, she visited the LBJ school about 1.5 years ago. And when I was organizing the visit, she said, can I please have a little bit of time to meet with the students? You know, we're going to do the big public event, but I want to make sure I have time with the students. I said, absolutely. And I remember very clearly, we were in the dean's conference room. And Alejandra said to all the students sitting around, she said, take out a pencil and paper. I'm going to give you my cell phone. If you need anything, you reach out to me. That, again, is a personification of a servant leader. She has a CV that few others rival, but she also has that love and that mentorship and that connection that is not easily replicated. So with that, Alejandra, felicidades, congratulations. Thank you for what you do.
I am speechless, even though I have a speech in front of me, but Victoria, thank you so much. I appreciate your friendship. I love watching you on MSNBC in the morning. So for those of you who are with us tonight, Victoria Di Francesco Soto does an incredible job articulating and making people understand what's happening. And I want to thank you, Victoria, as well, for that incredible white paper that we just released, thanks to your research, highlighting the childcare crises and the future of work in what is now called the She Session. So that partnership has been incredible, and I want to thank you. Dean Evans, I will echo similarly, thanking you for your leadership, your stewardship of this very esteemed and distinguished LBJ school. I am forever grateful for the stellar education, the amazing professors, and the incredible cadre of students that the school convenes to carry forth the vision towards public service that was set by President LBJ. I'm also grateful to the Alumni Association for selecting me to be this year's Alumni Awardee for Public Service. I know that I stand among amazing past awardees, including but not limited to my dear friend Tim Delaney, who so graciously is joining us tonight. Tim Delaney is the president and CEO of the Council of Nonprofits. And Tim is a recipient of this award, and so is the immediate past awardee, the incredible Stacey Abrams, with whom I will be with tomorrow, of course, virtually, as she helps us kick off YWCA's Women of Georgia Get Out the Vote Town Hall. This is the example of an incredible school that brings together the talent, but empowers us to really carry forward. I must give a shout out to of gratitude to my mother, Alejandra Castillo, as well as my late father, Alejandra Castillo, who instilled in me discipline, hard work, and love of country. My brothers, David and Gabriel, who always keep me on my toes, and my amazing nieces, nephews, my loving cousins, who, you know, in the Latin community, your cousins are your first best friends. Former and current colleagues with whom I have journeyed throughout my professional career, as well as the incredible team at YWCA USA and our leaders, staff, and volunteers at over 204 YWCAs across the country. I must also recognize my undergraduate professor, Thomas Prusa, who believed in me and wrote my letter of recommendation that got me into the LBJ school over 25 years ago. Thank you to all my friends who responded to my desperate plea last night to join me tonight. Thank you to my community who holds me up when I am down and knocks some sense into me when I am lost and keeps me hopeful when we lead through challenging times. At LBJ, I made so many amazing friends like Greg and Gina Montes, Betty Padilla, and so many others. 50 years ago, President Lyndon B. Johnson challenged us as a nation as he laid out his vision for what he called the Great Society. It was on May 22nd, 1964, that he delivered his Great Society speech at the University of Michigan. And it was there that he said, "Your imagination and your initiative and your indignation will determine whether we build a society where progress is the servant of our needs, or a society where old values and new visions are buried under unbridled growth." He also said, "For in your time, we have the opportunity to move not towards the rich society and the powerful, but towards upward to the great society." He defined the great society. He said, "The great society rests on abundance and liberty for all. It demands an end to poverty and racial injustice, to which we are totally committed in our times." These are the words of LBJ. And I am a product of that great society. I stand as a product of what we can do as a nation when we put people first and make social infrastructural investments that improve the lives of every person in America. Through the Great Society and the war on poverty, our government of the people, by the people, and for the people rose to meet the demands of a moment in time. As the child of immigrants, thanks to the LBJ administration, I benefited from programs like Head Start. I went to Malcolm X Head Start School in Corona, Queens, received school lunches at PS 19. I learned English through the public broadcast system, programs like Sesame Street and Electric Company. I received service at the Community Health Care Center on Junction Boulevard. I benefited from the Higher Education Act, which helped me attend the State University of New York at Stony Brook. Like LBJ knew that education was the key to a well-informed and engaged society. We must now take that lesson learned from this pandemic, the economic she-session, and the national call for racial justice, and once again reimagine the impossible to rise up towards a great society. My memories of the LBJ School are filled with the push to dream big and dream boldly. That's what our nation needs right now. And I am forever humbled and grateful for this recognition and hope that my work can just add to the contribution of so many public servants. I too remember the thunderous voice of Barbara Jordan, how she reminded us of ethics and integrity. Every single day, I try to come to work with just a bit of that lesson learned, to be ethical, to be somebody of integrity, but most importantly, to be in the arena. And if you're not in the arena, get out of the way, because right now we need bold leadership to steer us through these uncertain times. I'm hopeful, and I want to thank you again, Victoria and Dean Evans, for this incredible evening. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again to our incredible winners with wonderful messages for us tonight. Thank you everyone for being here for this award ceremony. We're now going to transition into small breakout rooms for networking and casual conversation. We'll spend about 20 minutes there, and then we'll come back here for a very quick closing and announcement. Closed. Okay, well, thanks so much again to everyone for spending your evening with us, celebrating the incredible alumni we have here from the LBJ School. I want to express our gratitude from the board for Dean Evans and her service to the school and all alumni. We appreciate the way she has shown up to meet with us, had candid conversations, and how we work together toward some of the school's many successes. Thank you for your leadership and dedication to the LBJ community, Dean Evans. I also want to
Thank you.
I also want to share a reminder that the board is currently collecting nominations for new members through the end of this month. You should have an email from Rachel with those details that went out a week or two ago. And we hope that you will consider applying or passing some encouragement about it along to another alum who you think is a good fit. This board will have an active role in the search for the new dean, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts for the school, students, and alumni. It's a great time to join us and have your voice heard. We also look forward to working with interim Dean David Springer and continuing to connect and celebrate the students and alumni of the LBJ School. Thank you for being here, and please take care. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks. And congrats again to the wonderful winners.